Hi guys, Sharol here. So, a few of you have asked me to share my experience of the 20-day Vipassana long course that I recently completed. And so here it is. Now, it's taken me almost a week to make this video simply because, what can I say? Vipassana. It is just, yeah. Well, let me start with explaining the difference perhaps between a 10-day course and a long course. Now, going into the 20-day course, I had this idea that it would be like stacking two 10-day courses, or doing two 10-day courses back to back. This is not the case. It's really different because Vipassana, as taught in the Goenka tradition, which is what I'm talking about, is basically one of every course, 1/3 of the time is always dedicated to the practice of Anapana, and then 2/3 of the time is dedicated to practicing Vipassana. Now, this 1/3 of time practicing Anapana is so important. I can't stress how important it is, because this 1/3 is actually what enables you to go deeper into the practice of Vipassana. So in a 20-day course, for example, you'd be doing 7 days of Anapana, and the rest of the time you'd be practicing Vipassana. So, it enables you, your mind becomes super sharp and super concentrated. It's you go deep. So having that opportunity to work in that way is such a blessing. It's challenging, don't get me wrong. It is challenging, but it is just so rewarding in terms of, if you really want to go to that depth, then definitely work towards a long course. So that's one aspect that's different in terms of the length of time. In terms of days, ratio-wise, it's the same. The other difference is, when you go for a long course, you are a serious meditator. So you regulate yourself. The schedule is the same. The morning before breakfast, there'll be chanting, and then there's the breakfast, and then the rest of the time up until 6 o'clock, there's no, the gong will go, but there's no set, what's the word? You practice the whole time that you're there. So everybody's in the hall, that's, you're just working, and you're really teaching yourself to be self-sufficient in the practice and really develop the practice, not just in the seated hours of meditation, but also continuously. So the entire time that you're there, you are meditating just continuously, or making an effort to meditate, and which is the same thing. You're constantly bringing the awareness back when you're doing Anapana, and then maintaining that awareness and equanimity when you're practicing Vipassana. So that's a difference, because you're meditating when you're walking, when you're eating, when you're sleeping, when you're showering. The only time essentially that you're not practicing is when you are in very deep sleep, and in time that will change as well. So that's a difference. Another difference would be, in the 10-day courses, you can talk to the female manager, briefly, if you need, or male manager, if you need anything. So, if you need more shampoo or something of that nature, right? So in long courses, it's a note system, and you write notes and they'll get back to you. So it's much more serious. You have 2 private interviews with the teacher throughout a 20-day course, and I'll share my experience with that, actually, because it was just incredible. Now, it was day 4 when I had my first interview, and she literally asked me, she was sitting on the Dharma seat, and she asked me, how are you? Like, how are you going? Are you comfortable? Is the food okay? Are you warm enough? Etc., etc. And sitting in front of her, all I could feel was just this immense, unconditional love just emanating from her. And, after the interview, you meditate together with the teacher. So that experience was I received so much love from her. It was unreal. And when I left the interview, I thought, this woman is my new role model. I mean, to develop the same qualities as her, like, that would be a pretty phenomenal accomplishment as a human being. So that's a little bit about experience, I suppose. And so we'll get back to this 1/3 of the time of Anapana. So 7 days, you're continuously practicing Anapana. And for those 7 days, the area is, it's a really limited area. So when you start off with the 10-day course, it's this big triangular area here. And then you start narrowing it down, the more courses that you do, down to a fingertip in this particular spot. So you can imagine your attention being focused right here continuously for 7 days, non-stop. Only when you're in deep sleep, just constantly just focusing on this small area. Your mind will become so sharp. And Goenka starts talking about the 31 planes of existence, the jhanas. So the discourses are very different in the sense that there's a reason why these things aren't spoken about in the early stages of practice. And that's something that I struggled with, because I like to know things. I'm a bit of a geek in that sense, and I want to know the mechanics of how it all works and all of that. But when your awareness is only, this much, if someone explains something to you beyond what you can see, or what more than see, but what you're aware of, it won't make any sense to you, and you'll think they're talking complete nonsense, or it's irrelevant to you, right? And this is why he talks about the practice, the theory going with the practice. So when you get to a certain level of practice, then the theory changes. And the practice, it's not that the practice changes per se. The technique of meditation is the same, but your experience of the technique will change because your awareness changes. And you really, because the mind gets an opportunity to become that sharp. When you're practicing Vipassana, you're scanning the body and observing sensations. And you're not just observing the sensations, but as you're observing them, you can observe the arising and the passing away of them. And for me, it felt like, there were times where I turned into bubbles, and just bubbles constantly arising and passing away. And, in a second, it would just be bubbling away, essentially. Thinking, this mind matter phenomenon is just, I've got no idea what's going on, what's actually going on. The apparent truth is just that, an apparent truth. It's not the ultimate truth. And to start developing the awareness to look at what is inside and experience it, will only come with practice. And so keep practicing. That's one thing. Yeah, definitely. It's just, it literally is that simple. And I've been guilty of trying to think that it's more complicated than that, and it really isn't. It is that simple. Simple but not easy. Okay, I did not say easy. This is a difficult thing to do. And there were times where the storms would just be coming up, and they'd just be coming up and coming up, and this rise of emotion, whether it was frustration or whatnot, and you're there with it, and you're sitting there with it. You're not distracting yourself. You're not running away from the unpleasant sensations. You're just sitting there, and you're just practicing as pure observation, not the observer or anything like that, but as pure observation, just observing the phenomena of what's actually happening with the matter as it interacts with the mind. And that is only something that can really be understood with experience. And as you say, for me, I think it was day 9 or day 11. There was just so much frustration, and I'm observing this frustration, and then it would pass away, and then it would come back, and I'm thinking, was I really objective, or was I really equanimous with what was happening? Because I spoke to the teacher about this, and she said, if you are really observing the sensation, if you're really aware and equanimous in that moment, it will pass, because everything arises to pass away, right? So yeah, it's pretty cool to meditate in that way, and to go to another depth. I mean, this is just a 20-day course. There are 30-day, 45-day, 60-day courses. So you can go much, much deeper. And yeah, I don't know if I'm ready for that yet, because a 60-day course would be, yes, something to work up to for me, that's for sure. I'm not ready for a 60-day course at this point in time, that's for sure. Yeah. And there are days when I was there that it's hard, and it was a 15th day, and I remember this specifically because after the evening discourse, I was just sitting there for the hour-long meditation after the discourse, and in the hall, and really struggling, just feeling so scattered. Like, my mind was so scattered, and I kind of thought, what are you doing? Like, can you do this? And I'm like, okay, just stop thinking about it and just practice, right? This analysis is just complete nonsense. So yeah, just observe, just practice. And wow, that night I struggled. And when I got back to my room, I thought, I think I need to leave. It's like, yep, I need to leave. Like, it's not, I can leave in the morning or whatever it is. My thought was, I must leave tonight. That was the thought that I had. And then it's like, you're observing yourself, and you're kind of going, what the hell is going on with you? Like, let's just keep working and observe. This is interesting, that I think I must leave, because the sensations that I'm feeling were really unpleasant. I'm thinking, yes, I must leave. And then, I just kept meditating, and the next morning, when I got up for the meditation, and I just felt entirely different, because as I went to bed, I was meditating until I fell asleep, and then when I woke up, my state had something had shifted, something drastic had shifted. And yeah, I went to the hall, and you get on with it. And it's almost as though, in life, it just made me realize how often I distract myself and not really want to be with the reality as it is. And Vipassana does that in terms of it teaches you to be right there with the reality as it is, not as you would like it to be. It's just with whatever's happening, with whatever sensation you have, and that's the only way we experience the world is through our five senses and the sixth sense door, which is the mind as well. And whatever is happening is perfectly all right. It's you can navigate any ocean. I'll tell you, wow, like that's what you're learning to do. What else? So in the practice of Anapana, because the mind is becoming very sharp, your awareness shifts and you could start to see other dimensions. Now, human beings are in the fifth plane of existence, and so there's 31 planes, and humans are in the fifth, and we have to get through the lower plane. So the idea of, liberation, enlightenment, Buddhahood, whatever you want to call it, is that you transcend all 31 planes. So when the mind becomes really concentrated, you start to eradicate, you're working to eradicate impurities when you practice Vipassana, but concentrating the mind will enable you to see things. So I saw some pretty dark things on retreat, and I was a bit nervous about going into it because a friend of mine who's an intuitive, she said, I sense that this, your retreat will be very deep, and that you are seeing, and already, and yeah, it's not something to be afraid of whatsoever. It's just having an awareness and overcoming all of that. And Goenka talks about that being, the lower planes. So the things from the lower planes will start to rise, and you're in the state of craving or aversion. So typically with those things, it's aversion, and then rushes of pleasant sensations would just flood the body, and it would feel amazing. And it's so hard to meditate when the sensations are that pleasant, because when you have pain and you're scanning the body, it's it's pain, and you're like, well, I'm not supposed to react to this, I just need to observe. Don't react, just observe, so you can understand that whilst it's happening. Whereas I found with the rush of pleasant sensations, it was very hard to know in the moment whether I was like craving or not. And so I did ask the teacher about this, and I said, how do I know that I'm not multiplying that? And she said to me, you'll know when the sensation passes, or when the sensations, the free flow stops, and you want it back. If you want it back, then you're craving. And if you're perfectly all right that it's past, then you're working properly. So yeah, that was interesting to navigate through. So yeah, I'm no expert in Vipassana, so I've done a few courses, yes, and I've done one long course. There are much more experienced meditators out there, and a lot of the people on the course that I sat, they'd been meditating for 20, 30 years. Not just meditating 20, 30 years, but Vipassana specifically. And a lot of them had sat with Goenka, which is pretty damn cool. Unfortunately, that's not a possibility anymore, as Goenka's since passed away. So yeah, that's a little insight into my experience of the 20-day course. So